What's the date?
What's the date?
What's the date?
What are we celebrating today?
All right. For the past year, Aisha and I have been ranting about Star Wars and just almost like it's left a bad taste in our mouth for a very long time.
Understatement.
And another, I would say, sort of an understatement, and I would say an unappreciated franchise is Star Trek. Because Star Trek here, at least in the Middle East, is very niche. Nobody talks about it. Everyone goes crazy, gaga crazy for Star Wars.
Yeah.
But Star Trek isn't really that popular. But in the States, I know it's like more hardcore. There's cult following behind it.
Mm-hmm.
And luckily today is Star Trek Day. And I feel like it's the time to commemorate this amazing franchise.
It is.
Give it the spotlight it deserves.
Because we'd have spoken about, May the 4th, which was May the Force be with you.
Yeah.
And even May 5th, which is, it was rhyming with Sith. So today we are celebrating Star Trek Day. And I was like, Star Trek. Does Mikey know much about Star Trek?
Unfortunately,
Not really.
no.
Me neither. I watched the movies for Chris Pine and obviously Chris Hemsworth and
But that doesn't make you enough of a Star Trek fan.
Exactly. That does not make me an expert. But a name came instantly into my head, and that is Maryam AlHabroosh, who is my very good friend, who is a massive Star Trek fan. And it's probably the reason why I was like, one day I will get to the series and start watching it. But she's all the way in Boston. But I was like, hey, Maryam, I know it's 7 a.m. over there. It's 8 a.m. right now. Like, can you come over and talk to us about Star Trek? And she was so sweet, even though it's all the way again. It's 8 a.m. right now. She's up and awake to talk about Star Trek. Hi, Maryam. How are you doing?
Hi, Asha. I'm good. And you?
We're doing great. Happy Star Trek Day.
Live long and prosper.
Live long and prosper. So hold on, you do this, right?
Exactly. Yep.
Like
There we go. I don't know if Maryam can see it.
Maryam cannot see us, but if you're tuning into YouTube right now, you can see Mikhail and I trying to do the live long and prosper. The other hand, Mikhail. The other hand as well.
Oh my God. Okay.
Yes.
I don't have no. Okay, there we go.
It's okay. You're doing great. You're doing great. So, Maryam, tell us, like Mikhail was saying that Star Trek is not very much popular in the UAE or even across the Middle East. What got you into Star Trek? What is it about Star Trek that made you go like, I love this franchise?
I think it was summer 2016, and I was in North Carolina with a few friends. And Star Trek Beyond just came out.
Mm-hmm.
And I think at that point we watched every single movie that's been released.
Wow.
Star Trek was the only thing we haven't watched. And none of us had ever watched Star Trek before. And we knew there were like a few movies before that one. But we were really bored and we said, hey, let's just watch it without context.
Mm-hmm.
And we walked in with absolutely no context. And, the movie started and we had no idea what was going on for the first half. But towards the end, I think we had a pretty good idea of what Star Trek is about. So I liked it so much the next day. I went back and I watched the 2009 one, the Star Trek 2009 movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I watched Star Trek Into the Darkness 2013. And ever since, I've been hooked.
Wow. Because that's how I got to know you first, when I followed you first on Twitter. And I was like, this person talks a lot about Star Trek. And I really want to know, what is it about Star Trek that makes you, fall in love with it? And actually just watching you super excited about it got me excited about it. Even though, again, I have nothing to do with Star Trek. Like I was, again, barely exposed to it. So this is just a lovely story of, accidentally getting into a fandom. But tell us, which from the Star Trek fandom, this massive, massive fandom, who would you say is your favorite character?
This is going to sound like a very basic answer, but Spock is my favorite character.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's Star Trek's most well-known character as well.
Yeah.
The reason I like him so much is because he's half human, half Vulcan. Vulcans are an alien species not known for suppressing their emotions and adhering to logic at all times.
Mm-hmm.
And he struggles to find the fine line between being too human and too Vulcan. So watching him navigate, through his adventures, sometimes his humanity takes over, sometimes his, Vulcan side takes over, and it's a delight watching him. So Spock has his own new show. They announced it a few months ago.
Oh, yeah.
A new show called Strange New Worlds.
Mm-hmm.
going to follow the adventures of a younger Spock than the Spock we've seen on screen. He starts out as an ensign, whereas when the new Star Trek movie came out, he was the co-captain.
Yeah.
Really love your passion for Star Trek, and I know one thing about the difference between the two major franchises, Star Wars and Star Trek, is that Star Wars is a general appeal. It tells a story that's very black and white. It's the Sith versus the Jedi, good and evil. But Star Trek, I think what makes it so great as a series, and I've only watched the movies, but the movies already tell me enough about it. It's not only about good and evil. There's very gray areas in terms of the story and the characters. It really delves into like intergalactic politics. It does a lot of it does the kind of the right representation in terms of ethnic groups. Like Star Trek back in the day was one of the very first shows that really diversifies its cast crew and was something really, really big and different in television history. And I think that's why people love Star Trek, because it takes Star Wars and it gives it a more compelling and a more deeper narrative.
Yes, absolutely. So, Maryam, to end this, we have to ask you, how can you convince somebody who has never thought about watching Star Trek? What would you tell them to convince them to get into Star Trek?
I just say Rise of Skywalker. That's it.
Well, I always recommend the new Star Trek movies for anyone who's interested in getting into Star Trek. The reason is that the movies were made for the general audience who have no prior Star Trek knowledge. There are a trilogy of movies, and the fourth one is being developed right now.
Well, that's a very simple answer. I love that. And you're right, because again, I had no idea what Star Trek was, except for, just intergalactic exploration, and that is it. And the fact that they pitch it against Star Wars. But you're absolutely right. To watch or start off with the movies, again, Chris Pine and Chris Hemsworth are in it. You guys should be watching it for those reasons alone.
Potential man crushes.
We mean potential. They're everybody's
for people who come into Star Trek.
Again, everybody's crushes. And the entire cast is fantastic. Thank you so much, Maryam, all the way from Boston.
So much for having me.
We love having you over again. Back when we did the Cats review, I can't stop talking about the Cats review. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. Mikhail missed out on it. And hopefully, inshallah, when you're back here in Sharjah, we're going to have you over on the show. Hope you are staying safe and staying strong all the way overseas, and live long and prosper.
Thank you so much. Long live and prosper. Goodbye.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.
Take care. This was our discussion on Star Trek Day. So happy Star Trek Day to all our lovely listeners. We're going to be coming back with an Xbox, accidental reveal. So stay tuned for that.
Is it an epic or epic failure? The Big Review. Movies, games, and TV in focus.
Pulse 95.
Last week, all over my timeline, all I saw were just various reviews from various people across the entire world about a movie called I'm Thinking of Ending Things. And I was like, that looks interesting. I'm not that into indie movies, but I was like, let's try it out. Let's see what this is about. Checked it out. It was coming out on Netflix last Friday. I told Mikhail on Thursday, I'm like, go check out this movie. Let's review it next week. And
to be honest, I did not anticipate what this movie had in store. I brought my friend over, and I swear to God, by the end of that movie, I apologized to him. I'm like, I'm sorry that you had to watch this with me.
Here's the thing, though. I did warn you. The funniest thing ever is that I did tell him, Mikhail, because I watched it before him over the weekend, and I was like, Mikhail, this movie is going to be mind-blowing. He's like, I'm ready for that. I was like, no,
because I've watched enough weird movies in my lifetime. I thought, okay, yalla, another indie, I can do this, right?
I told him, no, this is a different type of being mind-blown. But he did not. He just sent me a gif like, oh, bring it on. And then right after that was that voice note that is up on our Instagram. Guys, check out our stories, Mikhail and I, because it was hilarious. I listened to that voice note several times, and I was just laughing so hard. Everybody, all my followers, when I posted it, they were laughing so hard as well, because it just showed the emotion, the shock, the entire like, what did I just watch?
Exactly. This is a movie that honestly will challenge you. And again, it's not for everybody, but those who really are dedicated to watching this movie from start to finish and are looking for that deeper and complex meaning behind it, there is something really, really interesting in store.
Yeah.
I honestly, at the end of the film, I was a bit lost, so I went to YouTube, I watched an ending explain video, and I swear at that moment, I kind of forgave the movie for what it did to me.
Let's go backwards a little
Yeah.
bit. Let's talk about what the movie's about. It is by Charlie Kaufman, who is a well-known director, screenwriter, producer. I mean, he's known for The Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind and Being John Malkovich and, you know, all those well-known indie movies. So he's known for this thing. And he adapted this psychological thriller. There you go. Psychological thriller film from a book that is obviously the novel of the same name. The story centers on a young woman who keeps saying, she has like a whole train of thoughts in her head, and she keeps saying, I'm thinking of ending things. And she is on her way to her boyfriend's family's house to meet them for the first time. The funniest thing ever is the interpretation of I'm thinking of ending things. Because when I first read it, I thought it was something about suicide. Meanwhile,
Pulse
Mikhail
95.
thought that it was about ending her relationship.
And
So
I thought that's what the whole movie was about. It's just a really long journey of trying to break up with someone that you feel doesn't fit with you as a relationship, you know?
Yeah, and the interesting thing is that already tells you about the whole mind-blowing elements in this movie, because it plays along with time, the concept of time, and plays around with your mind in terms of who is who and what is going on. Why is this person saying this and what are they saying? I feel like one of the most mind-blowing aspects for me was the way they were talking, not what they were saying, because it's like somebody who is super, those fall intellectuals, the way they throw words and talk about things that are inherently very simple, but they just make it much more grander and bigger and whatnot.
As if you're speaking in your own head.
Exactly. That is exactly the way.
Something you got to pay attention when you watch this movie.
I did like the narration. That was a very interesting aspect. I'm a big fan of having narrators in general. I honestly felt like I was reading a book. I wasn't watching a movie, but rather reading the book, especially the pacing of the movie. They do spend a lot of time in the car, and it feels like they're not moving. But they are, but are they moving? But they're not. And even the way the scenes jump from back and forth. One of my favorite scenes was when she was walking down the staircase and she's going down and it just repeats and it just tells you about just the futility of existence. And they even talk about, there's a very nice quote about hope that she says at the beginning, that humans are the only ones who are aware of their death, or they're aware of when they will, basically they're gonna perish at some point.
Yeah, and their coping mechanism is hope.
Exactly.
But when you lose hope, you just become an animal.
Exactly.
And oh man, wow, how do I say? It's like foreshadowing. It's so insane how brilliantly this movie is, but also frustrating at the same time, because it really takes its time. My biggest issue with the film is it's a bit of a slog to watch, but I think if you watch it till the end and look up the meaning behind the film, you reflect back on all these scenes and it's like, oh my God, I get it now. And I really came out of that film understanding things about loneliness, about the unhealthy relationship with people and yourself, and how bad and damaging that is. Yeah. Really, it was a profound film, despite being, again, frustrating to watch.
It was incredibly frustrating, or at least I think it loses you at some point, whether it's at the beginning for me, and they kind of lost me because I was getting a little bit bored. They get to the house, and around midway through the movie, when things start to get weird, that's when I started paying attention and just trying to listen to the things they were saying, or I'm trying to pay attention to the things around them. And like I said, when you're talking about an unhealthy relationship, you have to talk about Jake and his parents as well, who were, you'd think that if somebody is driving in the snow, you're going towards your parents in such bad weather, you must love them or care about them. They were taking your girlfriend for the first time. But then it just shows the tension between them, and they're very uncanny, the way they speak, the way they talk to each other, and you get confused. It's like, what kind of relationship do you have with your parents? What kind of relationship do you have with your girlfriend, who I also like the fact that she was completely unnamed. They call her Lucia, They call her Louisa. They call her different names.
Ames as well.
Ames as well, and all kinds of names. It just throws you into like this whole abyss of confusion.
Yeah.
And I think that's the whole appeal of the entire movie, is that it just makes you just sit there, look for foreshadowing, but at the same time, I feel like at some point, I'd say around the last quarter of the movie, I gave up on trying to understand what's happening. I was like, I'll just take it at face value and try to see what's happening in terms of the movement, the speech, and the narration, and even the dance sequence. That one took me by surprise. The idea of connecting the movie with another movie that is a musical called Oklahoma.
Yeah.
So it was just, like I said, they're tiny, tiny things. You should pay attention, but at the same time, do not pay attention. So final verdict.
I don't know if I can really give it a score, to be honest, because it's a film that stands on its own, just being unapologetically niche.
Yeah.
And it's, again, not a film for everybody, but those who really look for films or stories that challenge you, I think this movie is fantastic. But if I were to give it a score, I think I'll give it a 7.
I will give it a 6 out of 10 because, again, they did lose me at some point, and I believe as well some reviewers were saying the same thing, and even my friends who watched it, that as interesting as it gets, maybe it is actually part of the movie just to talk about the stagnancy of life, that even though everything is moving on, you can still feel very much, stagnant and not moving as well.
I felt myself in some parts of that movie, especially with one particular character. And I think that's why I'm giving it a 7 out of 10, because I did, after discovering what the story was trying to tell me, I started to resonate with it on a very personal level.
And if you are a massive fan of Toni Collette, who plays the mother, I love her so much, all the way back from Hereditary. She is a fantastic actress. If you're a fan, this is a great another of her roles that you should be watching. So 6 out of 10, or maybe I could give it a 7 out of 10 as well. I just said that I wouldn't watch it again. That's how I would give it a 6 out of 10. But like Mikhail
I'd watch
said,
analysis videos on YouTube.
Yes, definitely that. And maybe even check out the book, because I did read the synopsis of the book, and it's even more mind-blowing than the movie itself. We just reviewed I'm Thinking of Ending Things, available on Netflix. It just came out last Friday, so check it out and tell us, what do you think about it as well? We're going to be taking a short break. We have a song coming up and the sports headlines, and we'll be back with more news right here on Pulse 95.
This is Pulse 95.
So last night, there were some interesting leaks where we finally got an opportunity to know the price of the Xbox, much to, Microsoft's chagrin. And according to Mikhail, Xbox was like, okay, fine, it leaked. Here is our official prices.
So this is no ordinary leak, because it not only showed the price for the Xbox Series X, but it also confirmed that there is an Xbox Series S, one that we've been just sort of speculating and discussing and theorizing. And they showed both the design of the X as well as the Series S. And I was shocked, like, oh my God, this is all in a leak.
Yeah.
And so Microsoft just conceded. They said, yeah, it's official, guys, and it's coming out November 10. The Xbox Series S is the budget version of the premium next-gen console, which will be priced at $300 or $299, with the Xbox Series X going to be priced at $499 or $400. And I think this finally debunks all the theories that people had that these next-gen consoles were going to be superly overpriced.
Yeah.
$500 is not bad at all.
I was quite shocked when I first read it. I said, wow, that's actually very interesting of Xbox for them to price it this low, because I was thinking 500 and above, at least 600. The 600 mark would have been like the maximum for me. I think nobody is going to buy anything beyond that. But I said that maybe they'll take advantage of it. They pick it at 550, maybe 559.
Yeah.
But for it to be $499, that's quite cheap. And as for the Xbox Series S, I love the fact that it was like the industry's worst kept secret, because there were a lot of promos like for stuff that are happening in October.
There was a controller that got leaked that showed the
yes, and even a couple of days ago there was another accident, not a leak, it was about I think it was a Call of Duty, something Call of Duty or a drink, I forgot what it was, and they're like, oh, it has a promo at the behind and it says, oh, the Xbox Series S, and everybody was like, Khalas, Microsoft, just admit it. You have another console that is, in the works as well, along with the Xbox Series X. Now we just need to wait for Sony. You said that it could be $100 less, but I do not think that they're going to go that low.
Well, PlayStation's not doing a budget console. They're doing a digital edition and a standard edition.
Yeah.
And if they've learned anything from the E3 2013 and the way they priced their PS4, I don't know if it's going to happen, but I'd like to predict that Sony might just undercut Xbox with the price now that they came out officially with it. And maybe 100 is excessive, but perhaps $50 less. And I know you said, but they will suffer losses and they won't make a lot of money.
Let me just explain that a bit more, because you and I were talking about a couple of weeks ago when we're having this entire conversation. You said that, they're going to make losses, and I agree with you, they're going to make losses, but then they're always thinking about the long term, which is true. And that is great, because again, it's all about console loyalty. All the gamers who prefer Xbox are going to buy the Xbox regardless if they're going to buy it now or in 2 years. Same thing with Sony. This is the same thing. However, I have to say that you have to take into consideration the pandemic, because this just means that
This is Pulse 95.
consequences or the losses are going to be even longer.
Well, I like to look back at history, and at the time when the PlayStation 3 got launched and it was being sold for $500, at that time, that was a lot. It was $100 more than the Xbox 360. And what's interesting about the PS3 is that it costed them $800 per unit to produce. So they were selling it already at a loss, and for a couple of years Sony suffered billions of dollars worth of loss, but they've managed to break even by the end of the generation and even make the PlayStation 3 more scaled down and cheaper to produce, as well as get some profit from it. So I think this time, again, they might be selling it for less than they produced. I don't know by how much, but the important matter for them is getting as many PlayStation 5s in people's homes as soon as possible, because again, they don't just make money from selling the console, they're also selling you the PlayStation Store, virtual store. They make a lot of money from just sales on that. Any services like the PlayStation Plus subscription. So I think they're willing to just kind of bite bite the dust for a bit.
Do you remember the rumor from earlier this year that they won't even have a lot of units at launch? So there's another thing to take into consideration. So guys, tell us, do you think that Sony is going to price it lower than the Xbox, or around the same, or above it?
Sony. You know what you're doing here.
I'm gonna say it's going to be the same price or a little bit above. I'm not going to go with less than that. Mikhail says less. We're going to see who's going to win. The winner, we can find something, an incentive. The winner gets something. How about that?
Okay. Oh, wow. You want to make that kind of prediction?
We're going to make that
you're predicting that it could be the same price or a bit higher?
Yes.
I'm saying that it could undercut by $50 to $100.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, there we go. We're going to think about it in the break, and we'll see what we're going to be wagering over. We're going to be taking a break, and we have a rumor coming up next, so stay tuned.
Pulse 95.
With the pandemic, a lot of people have resorted to gaming as their coping mechanism, and that's great. And I'm sure Nintendo Switch has been very commercially successful because of it. And in a recent reports, usually whenever a patent is registered, it's for public domain and people can really get a good gander. And people do keep an eye on anything that Nintendo usually does. And apparently a new Nintendo patent has been surfaced, which hints for a new Switch controller.
Well, there are rumors that we might be getting a new version of the Switch very soon in the first quarter of 2021. And this could be it, or this could be an upgraded version of the Joy-Con, because it has a lot of drift issues. In fact, a couple of months ago, there was a lot of talk, and there was got exposed, and
the president of Nintendo apologized.
The lawsuit as well against the Joy-Con and the drift issues. So maybe this is either for the new upgraded console, or this could be just a new version of it that would hopefully work also in place of the old Joy-Con. Whatever it is, we're excited. I mean, we are looking for any sort of scraps and news, so why not?
There is one key difference about this patent design, and it's instead of the Joy-Con sliding in on the screen panel, this time you can just snap it in. So like click instead of doing the slide motion.
No, I like the slide motion. Do you know why? Because every time
more satisfying. Yeah.
Yes, and when you slide it, it makes this the clicking
So
sound.
I might still do that in a way,
Maybe,
by just kind of
but it's more
snapping
fun
it
when
in.
you do that. It's better than actually snapping it. It's just more satisfying. Just trust me on that. As for more news, actually, I was speaking to you about it a couple of days ago, and then we found an article about it, which is that Nintendo's website may have revealed that Super Mario Bros. 35th anniversary plans was delayed by 5 months, and this just tells you that the pandemic has affected everybody, including Nintendo. People were saying that no, Nintendo has been perfectly fine, but obviously the lack of Nintendo Directs and basically lack of content here and there.
There's something wrong when there's a Nintendo Direct Mini.
Exactly. When they announce 2-3 minis and when they announce the indie ones, you're like, okay, there's a problem, especially around the summer when we usually get a lot of them and we get none. This is when you know that there is a problem. And I think a lot of fans were in La La Land, maybe they just were not super aware of it, and just being very rude and mean for them to expect that a big company, regardless if it's Nintendo or whoever it is, for them to be pumping out games in a pandemic this fast and this consistently is truly unfair. So don't worry, Nintendo. This Nintendo fan is patiently waiting for whatever you give us, whether it's in the upcoming months, upcoming weeks, or next year, even though I was a bit disappointed about the last
Nintendo Direct.
The last Nintendo Direct. The last two Nintendo Directs were out of nowhere, and I was kind of disappointed. But again, I'm what is that word? Forgot the word in English.
You're content?
No, Arabic word is mutawada.
متواضع يعني you're just used to the disappointment.
No, that's not what it
Sorry, my Arabic little. What does it mean? In Arabic.
I will think about it. I forgot the word, guys. If you remember what mutawada is in English, please save us. We just suck here at remembering words, obviously. But it's okay. We have one more segment to go. You can tell us later on. We have a suggestion for me, actually a reminder from me. So stay tuned for that.
Pulse 95. You're listening to Pulse 95. Pulse 95.
It's Pulse 95.